Do you remember how Luigi completely wrecks Super Mario 64 because he can basically do anything? Yeah, that's what dominant 7th chords are to music.
Ongaku concepto.
I've talked a lot about dominant chords on this channel. The dominant chord is one of the most important chords at your disposal because it's one of the most tense chords of the key, and it's used to solidify key centers through cadences. The only place a dominant chord shows up naturally in the major key is on the 5, but you can get other dominant chords on other scale degrees using what's known as a secondary dominant. I've talked about those before, but today I'm going to show you a new use for the dominant chord that, when combined with the idea of secondary dominance, will allow you to go places with your music that you never thought possible. Here's an excerpt to a song from the K-On! Movie. Wait, rewind that. This is a dominant chord. It's not the natural 5 chord of the key, that would be G7, and it's not a secondary dominant. It is, in fact, what's known as a tritone substitution. It's a jazz concept, and it sounds scary, but it's really, really simple. See, dominant 7th chords work because of leading tones. A G7 chord is made up of 4 notes, G, B, D, and F. That's the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, respectively. The 5th is the least important note here. It has no bearing on whether the chord is a major chord or a minor chord, and it has nothing to do with the type of 7th chord it is, so we can safely leave it out without changing the quality of the chord. In fact, the 5th is very often left out of this chord or altered to be raised or lowered by a semitone, so it's not important for this analysis. We're going to focus on these 3 notes here, the root, 3rd, and 7th. The 3rd and 7th are the most important notes. In a 5-to-1 cadence, B would resolve up to C, and F would resolve down to E. That's what makes the 5-to-1 resolution so strong. Hopefully you already knew that, but today we're going to take this idea and go further with it. The idea behind a tritone substitution is this. Any 2 dominant chords a tritone away can perform the same function. Let me define tritone. Tri means 3, like triangle or tricycle, or triforce. So a tritone is equal to 3 whole tones, or 3 whole steps. So a tritone away from G is C sharp, or D flat. Let's move G up to D flat and rename B to C flat. We have a D flat 7 chord. C flat, or B, and F are still a part of this chord. They're common to both G7 and D flat 7, but they have reversed roles. In G7, B is the 3rd and F is the 7th. In D flat 7, C flat is the 7th and F is the 3rd. This chord resolves down to C just as well as G7 does. In addition to this, we get a really nice chromatic bass line going from D flat down to C. Why use a tritone substitution, you might ask? There are a variety of reasons depending on how creative you want to get. First of all, it's very good for chromatic bass lines, as I mentioned before. You can also use tritone substitutions anywhere you have a dominant chord in effect, so any secondary dominants you can also apply tritone substitutions to. This can be found throughout the Mario franchise. One great example is Sherbetland from Mario Kart 64. If you're familiar at all with the use of secondary dominants to change keys, adding in tritone substitutions gives you a huge number of new options. The D flat 7 chord, for example, could theoretically be used to change keys to G flat, considering D flat is the 5 of G flat. Tritone substitutions are really, really cool, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much you can do with them, so I encourage you to look on your own and see what you can come up with. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments or email me at ongakuconcept@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.